Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Kramer, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at the University of Colorado Boulder's Leeds School of Business. Leeds is a top business school offering undergraduate, MBA, executive MBA, MS, and PhD programs and has an alumni network of over 47,000 strong living and working around the world. For today's Leads webinar, we're so excited to welcome certified career coach Hallie Crawford here presenting 10 transferable skills to help you change careers. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, if you have any questions now or during the presentation that you would like to ask Hallie, please send a question through the Q&A interface at the bottom of your screen. We will monitor questions as they are submitted and ask Hallie your questions at the end of the presentation. As a reminder for optimum audio quality, we do have everyone on mute except for myself and our speaker. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please notify us through the chat interface and one of our support specialists will touch base. Lastly, a link to access the webinar recording will be sent to all registrants on Friday along with a survey link. Now I'm excited to introduce today's speaker. Hallie has been a certified career coach, speaker, author, and national career expert since 2002. Her company, Create Your Career Path, is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. She is regularly featured in the media, U.S. News, Forbes, Money Magazine, and more, and has undergraduate and graduate degrees from Vanderbilt and the University of Illinois. With over 2,700 success stories, her team of coaches and resume writers help professionals find jobs that make them want to jump out of bed in the morning to go to work. The website is www.createyourcareerpath.com. Hallie experienced going through her own tough career transition and is still learning to appreciate that while she's over 50, she still gets asked on airplanes if she's old enough to sit in the emergency exit row. Welcome, Hallie, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to hand the webinar over to you now.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I don't know how much longer that emergency exit row thing is going to go on. I'm going to have to color my hair a little bit more, but fingers crossed. So thank you for spending time with us today. We greatly appreciate it. I hope you're staying cool. I know it's a crazy summer and heat wave right now, too. And honestly, the summertime is a good time to be thinking about your transferable skills. Because what I find is obviously we want you to take vacation time, all that other good stuff that happens during the summer. But a lot of times when we are taking a break or out of the office or away from home or whatever, sometimes we can think more creatively about our transferable skills and strengths and the value we bring to the table. So it's a great time to be thinking about this. So we already had an introduction. I won't belabor this. My undergrad is from Vanderbilt and master's degree from the U of I. I've partnered with the University of Colorado for many, many years. I need to actually count. I feel like it might be over 10. And the advice that we're going to give you all today is advice that we give to all of our clients. We try to be as practical, tangible with our action steps and advice as much as possible to help you move forward with what we're talking about today. And because I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, I would invite you to pick one action step that makes the most sense for you from today that you will take on like in the next week, for example. And remember that you can revisit the recording because you will get a copy of that. And in a few minutes, we will show you the QR code, excuse me, that you can use to grab the slides. I'm going to pull up some of the link that you can use as well for that. We're happy to give you our slides so that you can be a little bit more present today, listening, thinking, etc. Okay, so let's dive in and then I'll show you our agenda in just a couple of slides. So first of all, the reason why we talk about any of this in the first place is that career change, understandably, can be overwhelming for everybody. I feel like it should be on that, that top 10 list of most stressful times in life or things that people experience, like public speaking and moving. I feel like this should be in the top 5. People will tell us so many different things that it's just scary in the first place. It's overwhelming and they put it off, which I totally get. We have people that will come to us and say, I've been thinking about this for years and I didn't do anything about it. Other people will say other things listed on this slide, like, I don't know where to start. And especially for why we're here today, I'm not sure how to brand myself or represent myself effectively for a different industry, which is going to be our focus today. The other thing that we know, which is a challenge for people, is that resumes are scanned really, really quickly. Same with LinkedIn. Employers and recruiters, they're really busy. They're not going to take a bunch of time to read through your resume unless they think that, you're going to be a good fit to bring in. So we need to be really focused on branding ourselves effectively and really focused on those transferable skills, especially when you're looking to make a change or a shift. That's the bad news. This is the good news and what we want to focus on today, that you can make a change. We're going to talk about the 10 most important, if you will, or most common transferable skills, and we'll focus on each one specifically. And we do have clients make a change. That's why we're in business. We've got clients who make changes all the time. We want you to know that this also isn't Pollyanna and a magic wand, that it does take the right perspective. And what we tell our clients is that it takes time to think this through and make sure that you're telling the right story when you're talking with people and on your materials. You have to be realistic about the changes that you can make. I'm 52. I'm not going to go be a pro basketball player tomorrow, right? I'm short, all these other reasons. That's a silly example, but you get the gist. You do have to be realistic about things and also know that the jobs that you may be looking at, nothing's ever going to be perfect. So also don't put that pressure on the process of like having every single thing on your resume be perfect, et cetera. Part of this is learning what you need to do along the way. So please realize that career transition, it does take time. It takes a minute to make a change, and longer than job searching if you are looking for the same thing that you've been doing. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible to do so. You've just got to be persistent, patient with it, but also really consistent about your efforts and like move the needle forward. Okay. So if you would do me a favor really quickly, we're going to talk about our agenda. If you would locate the Q&A box and the chat box as well, that would be great. I'm going to put the link to the slides inside of the chat box so you can grab those. You can also get the slides by using the QR code here. And our agenda for today, we're going to talk about how to start identifying what those transferable skills are, because that's one of the challenges that people have. They're like, I don't know what mine are. The second thing we're going to talk about is those 10 most common ones. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit about formatting your resume, and we will have Q&A at the end, as Amanda referenced. But I am also happy. I've got the chat box and the Q&A box open. Please feel free to put questions in the Q&A box along the way, because I'm happy to stop and answer right then. And I would love it if you would share any resources or comments or things that you have found helpful as well, because I love it when we can all learn from each other too. So make a note of that if you would, and pop those open for us. So before we dive in with our agenda, I would like to go ahead and launch our first poll. We're going to make sure you're staying awake. We've got a few polls for today. And our first one is, what do you struggle with the most? Is it, I need to know what they are in the first place? Is it selling myself, or a little bit of both? And it's okay if it's both. We just wanted to get a little bit of a feel here for where you guys were at. And we'll give you a moment to fill that out. Okay, cool. Yep. Most common is both, which makes perfect sense. So we're going to talk about both today. For those of you who feel like it's a little bit more on the identify side, please focus more on those slides and that portion at the beginning. For those of you who feel like it's more selling myself, we will talk about that. Give it a minute as we get through our slides to get to that point. And thank you for sharing that. It's really good, helpful information for us, but we also want you to know too that you're not alone. These things are completely normal. So the first thing when we're thinking about making a career shift or identifying transferable skills for whatever reason, you need to know what your direction is and define it clearly and know your targeted jobs. And the reason why we bring up this ideal career model, this is a model that I developed soon after I started my coaching practice in 2002 to help people have one place to go to say, how do I define the right job for me? But also, how do I identify the right goals and start to understand my brand more? So, our ideal career model can help you narrow down your ideas. What you want to be looking for in an ideal world for your next job are things like, is it going to be rewarding to me in some way? Is it going to have tasks or projects that are interesting and appealing to me? So I'll be engaged and challenged. Is or are the jobs I'm looking at going to play to my strengths? Will they leverage my past experience in education in the way that I want it to? Will they fit with my personality type, whether I'm introverted or extroverted, or more of a leader or a follower? And finally, will they have the right work environment for me? Critically important piece. And will I be compensated in the way that I need to and deserve to be? So make sure up front you're defining your targeted jobs and that you're clear, because to identify your skills and start to tailor your resume, you need to know what your target is in order to figure out what they want to you what they would be looking for from you, so to speak. Now, when you're trying to identify transferable skills, we'll give you a couple of tools to start doing that. So, on this first slide with the model again, the places we want you to be looking at and thinking about are your strengths. So, just in general, what your strengths are, not just how they apply necessarily to your current job or your previous position, but bigger picture and kind of in a more general way. Like, is it project management? Is it working with numbers? Is it, planning events or something like that? Take it out of the industry and the company that you're in and say, what is it that I'm doing in general? You can take a Strengths Finder assessment. There are some great resources on this website that I will put down right now. In the chat box, onetcenter.org has some good kind of tools and quizzes to help you identify different things too. The other places you can look for transferable skills are the courses that you took at Colorado and any other certifications, for example, that you might have. Also, your past experience, and dig deep into it, because transferable skills can come from older experience in some cases as well. Employers value that more recent experience, but maybe in your more recent experience, you've kind of piggybacked on that older experience. And then we also want you to consider, please, as transferable skills, your personality type and what soft skills come to mind or you have based on just who you are as a person. Like, you're a great communicator, you're great at change management, you're great at leadership or working within a team or managing change or establishing relationships with people very quickly. Personality traits are also or can be transferable skills. So we want you to think about those too. Another way that you can start to identify what some of your transferable skills might be are to use this leadership wheel. And what I would say here is you don't have to be a manager managing other people to have some of these strengths. Okay. This is from Development Dimensions International. It's a management consulting firm. And you can get the slides, print this out, and rank yourself in each of these areas to say, okay, where am I good in each of these areas? Now, when you're doing this, remember, we only want you to be focusing on the ones that are going to be relevant for the jobs that you're applying to and looking at. But go ahead and rank yourself on all of them as a starting point, then you can fine tune. Identify your top like 3 or 4 strengths. We really like it as an added kind of benefit or exercise here is if you ask others to rank you too. Because what if you're discounting something that comes really naturally to you? Or if you don't realize, like, for example, that you're really good at this one thing, but in a unique way that they haven't seen other people do. So self-evaluation and asking others to rank you is ideal. The next way that you can identify transferable skills is to look at your resume, go through it, look at your previous performance reviews and what have people said about you, your previous bosses or current boss. And the other thing we like for everyone to have, for the rest of their career, honestly, is not just keeping their resume kind of up to date annually, but also have an accomplishments document where you are starting to keep, if you're starting it right now, testimonials, kudos from people, stats and results, because when you look at those things, that can start to show you what your themes are and help you identify some of those transferable skills. Because if people keep saying a certain thing, that's a clue. So, what do these things tell you about transferable skills for you? And then another exercise that we really like is also to interview other people that know you well, a blend of friends, but also coworkers or former coworkers can be a good way to do this because you're getting kind of a smattering or variety of results. But just asking people, even informally, what comes to mind when you think of me? That's part of what your brand ends up being. What do you see are my top skills? What do I do really well? Those types of questions, just for a few minutes, can again validate some of the things that you may have done previously, like we're talking about, but also give you a little bit more depth to understanding what your strengths are. And also, when you're thinking about transferable skills, you can take a look at this is from Korn Ferry, the 6 stages of career development. Identify where you are in your career at this point. And it's okay, by the way, if you're kind of in between one or two, that's fine. But trying to identify where you are can help tell you what some of your transferable skills are and looking at the jobs that you're going for what that might be required and most important. Okay. So let's talk about our 10 transferable skills. So this is our second agenda item for today. So the top 10 skills that you want to be considering and thinking about as they are relevant for the jobs or career paths that you're looking at are listed on these next few slides. Now, what I want to say up front is we're not saying you have to have all of these. We want you to say and understand which are the ones that are really important or would be important for the jobs you're considering and looking at, and focusing on those. What are the ones that you have? Okay. So when we look at each of these, let's start with management and technical. Management and technical, those words are very broad. So, what we want you to do with your transferable skills and when you're communicating them, so just by the way, these next few slides are kind of a blend of identifying, but also communicating and selling yourself this way. When you're talking about management, we want to know what you mean by that. Is it managing others? Or no, it's managing numbers, or it's managing money, or it's project management, or it's management within operations or human resources. So, like, what department is it and what are you managing? And what's the result of you doing that? So, you want to ask yourself, okay, where could I use this in this different industry that I'm curious about? And what would I need to learn if needed or demonstrate that I know in order to sell myself effectively, right? So sometimes we will, when we go through a client's resume to help them identify transferable skills, they will talk about something really specifically, let's say, um, related to what they've done in their most recent job. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at it, it's basically project management, just using a quick example. So that's where you can kind of take a 10,000-foot view of what you've been doing, take it out of the context of where you've been, and say, basically, I'd be doing the same thing here or there that I have been. It's just in a different way or using different tools. That's how we want you to be thinking. With technical skills, obviously, these are critical. How to use AI for your job, that it needs to be on the list as appropriate. Whether it's software or apps that you know how to leverage and use. If it's technical skills like working with data or engineering or something like that. So, whatever is the transferable skill for you, don't just have it be technical in general, like dig a little bit deeper about or into what that means and what the results are that you can bring to the table based on that skill set. Two of the next transferable skills are communication and critical thinking. All employers want someone who can communicate and think critically and be proactive. Um, Remember, when we're thinking about transferable skills too, and we talked about a few minutes ago, those soft skills, what we mean by that, just to clarify for a second, is those soft skills are things that, like communication skills or critical thinking listed on this page, that are things that an employer really can't teach you, or it would be harder for them to do so. They might have to send you to a class or, whatever. But they can teach you how to learn their type of software and use it. They can teach you the processes and the systems for their organization, but they can't teach you, for example, to be like detail oriented or have a strong work ethic. So remember that transferable skills, they're going to fall into two buckets. You have to have the technical, the practical, like tangible skills for sure to be considered for the job. But the thing that's going to push you over the edge versus a competitor who may have the same type of background or similar are these soft skills. Employers, people choose people that they like and think that are going to fit well with their team. And they will consider and say, I can teach them this other stuff. I really feel like they'll work hard, whatever it is. So just don't discount these soft skills, if you will. So with communication, let's look at this next slide here for just a second. So communication can have a lot of different, arms, if you will. Whether it's marketing, PR, it's relationship building, it could be conflict or change management, or literally like writing, giving presentations, all of that. And as we're talking about each of these, just by the way, we're not saying to you, you have to pick one item on the list. It could be multiple items, especially if, for example, you're looking for a communications job. Well, you're going to need to have a lot of these, right? So it's not just one. And with critical thinking, don't just say that. Tell us what that means. Are you an expert in efficiency or operations or, human resources or something else? Or is it strategic planning or problem solving, and for what purpose? So again, drilling down a little bit deeper. Now, the next one is this idea of multitasking. And we don't want you to just put, adept multitasker and that's it, because a lot of people will say that. So you want to get more specific here, and here are some examples, whether it's ability to work effectively under pressure, deadlines, if that's the type of job that you're looking to get into, managing multiple things at once. You're really good at being detail oriented, and maybe that's the job, but maybe for another job you're looking at, you need to be able to be detail oriented, but also think big picture. It could be technical expertise, but for example, you're also able to multitask at the same time and explain what the technical stuff means to a non-techie person like me. So this multitasking thing, again, you want to drill deeper a little bit more into exactly what that means as it relates to the specific job that you're going for. Now let's talk about our next two on this next slide. Teamwork, working well within the organization, always a critical piece. Is it leading teams that's going to be important, working within a team? If the job is going to require you to work remotely or hybrid, you want to talk about your ability to do that effectively. Are you able to make your team more efficient or anything else like that? So making sure that you talk about how you work with others is going to be a critical piece to adding like at least one thing in your resume about it. And then the next one is creativity, whether it's creative thinking, problem solving in a creative way, or flat out, no, my job that I'm going for is in graphic design and or a marketing project marketing project manager wouldn't be it, but you get the gist, being creative, the marketing designer, etc. So creativity is good, and you want to be specific with that too. And our final three that we want you to consider are leadership, research, and being able to be analytical. So leadership is not always about the fact that you manage other people, because if you haven't, you can still be a leader within your department, within your organization. based on how you perform within your team, how you're known within your organization or seen, and even more so within your industry. So, what type of leadership are you talking about? Is it team leadership or no, it's more operations leadership or finance leadership? Think too about the specific leadership qualities relevant to the position. So, just by the way, as you're working on updating your resume for each job that you're going for, it's a really good idea to print out the job description and print out your resume and have them side by side and go through that job description and say, for example, have I touched on at least once everything that's listed here? And also ask yourself, what are the strengths that they're asking for? Not just the past experience, but also the skills and expertise. And that can help you in some ways identify what some of yours might be and also what you would need to be adding to your resume. The last two are research. What kind of research? Data marketing, etc. And even more so, what are you able to do with that? Perform something better, manage something more effectively, report to so and so, and they're able to make a better decision or plan from it. Again, be as results oriented as possible. And analytical skills can also be relevant or not, depending on the job that you're looking for. But again, what kind of analysis do you perform? Is it with numbers? Is it with, some other kind of data? Is it analyzing the systems for an organization or the people systems or something, like that? And for what purpose are you doing this? So, just to recap, using these as ideas for some of your possible transferable skills is another way to identify what they are, but also how to articulate those. Now, we recommend and will definitely say that you can use AI to help you with identifying some of these and communicating them. What we want you to know is be careful with it because I think most of you have probably heard, but just in case not, employers and recruiters can tell already when something has been solely written by AI and generated solely by AI. They don't like it, it's going to get tossed out. You can use it for ideas. What are the common strengths or transferable skills for, a business major with an expertise or focus on accounting, whatever it is. You can also ask it, what are some of the transferable skills required for this type of job? It can help you generate ideas, but also how you might want to say things. Just be careful with it and make sure that you're using your head. Because remember, it's a computer, it's just pulling things from somewhere else. And we don't want you to use the exact language that it spits out to you. We want you to wordsmith things. Really, really important. Okay. Because it ends up sounding like a computer when you use just the AI. Now, as part of talking about AI and assistance, we always offer a free consult. If you'd like to learn more about our coaching services, I'm happy to talk with you more about these. Um, it's a free consult to learn about how we work and if it's the right fit for you. There's a link in the chat box. You can use the QR code. If you do set this up with me, please make sure that you let us know you came from this webinar because I will give you a coupon code. We give a discount for alum and students and honestly anybody else who's on the call today. All right, let's start to talk about our third item for today. And this is, how do I start to articulate these things on my resume effectively? We want you to think about how you're going to tell your story verbally as well. And we need to think about your LinkedIn. But for today, let's start with resume. And I'll go through a couple of things here, looking at my second screen. So I've got at the top, create a compelling summary. So the deal is with resumes, we want you to have a nice branded header at the top here. We want you to have a summary statement and a section where you've got your skills, transferable and otherwise, okay? And when you are looking to make a shift, whether it's a course correction or a larger shift, or even just getting into a new position after school, but you need to talk about transferable skills. They kind of go across all situations. Two of the things that you can do as in terms of formatting your resume, I'll show you two or give you an example here. So you can lay out your summary statement if you'd like to as a bulleted list. And you could do the same thing as this in your experience sections as well. What we're doing here is we're highlighting the transferable skills each time so that it sticks in the reader's mind. And then you're giving an example or an explanation of what that experience and expertise is. So the way to sell yourself using your transferable skills, you can do the same thing in your experience section with the only difference would be is you've got, let's just say marketing focused leader. This is a little bit generic, 10 years of experience, yada, yada. But you might have underneath this subhead, you might have 2 or 3 bullet points of projects, things that you've worked on, and results that support your assertion there. That's how you can lay out your experience section in a transferable way. Okay. We call this a hybrid version of your resume because what we're doing here is we're keeping it as the layout of it overall as chronological because employers tend to like that more. But what you're doing is making it functional within these sections. Okay. Your transferable skills also need to go here as appropriate. And you can use AI to help scan your resume against a job description to help you tailor it and make sure that it has the right keywords in it. Now, remember, it's a computer. So it's going to say some stuff that you're like, I'm not really sure if that's right, or I already have all those keywords in there. Don't stuff your resume with keywords because then it's going to be obvious that's what you did. So make sure that you've highlighted them like 2 or 3 times and then move on from it. When we're looking at this next slide, you want to tailor your resume to each position that you're applying for. So if there's a transferable skill that they don't require, I don't want you to put it in there, please. Here's my joke about this. If the employer, or imagine that the employer or recruiter is a dog on a set. I have a dog, so I can say this. And the dog's looking for chicken, but you throw in beef, they're going to go somewhere else. They're looking for chicken. You can talk about all of the other great things that you can do in the interview as appropriate, but we really want it to be tailored and only have the relevant skills, expertise, and results. Include quantifiable results whenever possible. And if you don't always have numbers, you can give a percentage or a range. That's okay. Or a results-oriented statement. Now let's do our next poll if we could, and I'm going to talk about what I mean by this so that you get what we're asking. So we like for our clients to have one master version of your resume where you use that one to create all of your resumes from, and you never use the master version. You don't send it to anybody because it might even have your notes in there about what you need to change. So a master copy, we're wondering if anyone has this or has used this idea before. And it could be longer than it's supposed to be, and it could have some of your notes in it and gobbledygook. But when you have the master version and you've noted, for example, use this word or this word, depending on the job, makes it that much easier to tailor. So we'll give you a moment for that. Glenda, who asked about the consult, if you look right above in the chat box and you copy and paste that link there, it should take you to something. Ooh, and looking at our results here, I'm really happy that that many people have a master copy of their resume. Kudos, that's great. Glad you're using it. For those of you who do not, and I'll just put the consult link in here too. For those of you who do not, you're not alone. Don't feel bad. This is why you're here today. You can start to work on this, but it will help you tailor it each time much faster. Our goal for our clients is to be able to tailor their resume for each job in about 20 to 30 minutes at the most. And believe me, we've had clients come to us and say, I took all day to apply to a job and tailor my resume. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like that's way too much time. You're not going to be able to apply to enough over time. Now, let me give you short, quick example here related to the experience section, like we were just talking about. So with your employment history, a couple of the like examples or things to give you ideas is if you're going to say adept multitasker, but you're giving more detail here. So what I want you to notice, please, is on the left-hand side of this slide, they're getting into detail about this. It's about managing projects, deadlines, processes. They're not multitasking like with a team and managing a bunch of people or volunteers or whatever it is. It's much more process oriented. So this is where, again, where you're getting into that detail about what you're good at and being hands-on with things. And if you look at, for just one quick second, let me go back to this for 1 second. Sorry. With this person, the way, and he has branded himself effectively because if you look here, you've got marketing and communication strategists. Well, that could cover a lot of different types of jobs, right? But when you look here below, it's like, oh, he does BD and community outreach. So that's his narrower focus. We're funneling things down so that he's selling himself effectively to the right next job. You see the difference there? Okay. So we'll start to get to our Q&A here in just a moment. I wanted to share a couple of extra tips related to resume, and then I'll say a couple of things about LinkedIn that piggybacks on what we were just talking about too. So with your resume, have someone else proofread it because inevitably we write something down or misspell. You want to make sure you use the right size font, something that's applicant tracking system friendly. Whenever you're emailing your resume to someone or uploading it to a job board, always do PDF. And we do like for people to have a cover letter you can use on your LinkedIn in that experience section and in your cover letter, those same category bullet points, like we said, for transferable skills. So the things that we talked about today related to your resume can be translated over, so to speak, to LinkedIn. One of the things that you want to think about when you've got your categories with your bullet points, right? So if we go back to the resume for just 1 second, if Joe is applying for a job, let's just say, that is going to be much more people focused than marketing strategy focused. He's getting into more of a leadership position. He's going to move this up. So, moving around in order of priority, your bullet points is also something that we want you to think about when you're working with your master resume to say, okay, for this particular job, which of the bullet points is going to be the most important? Okay. You can do the same thing with LinkedIn. Use ChatGPT and AI to give you some ideas about how you might want to word certain things. But again, as we've said already, wordsmith it and put it in your own language just to be careful. Okay, so we'll start to move to our Q&A. And I wanted to mention, so please go ahead, get in the chat box or the Q&A box, and I'm happy to answer anything. We have a great job search boot camp coming up that will help you land that next position. I will put a link in here to that. And also, there's a QR code there. Happy to talk with you more about that, but you can learn about it at that link. And basically, we show you all the things you need to do to get in front of employers, all the way through interview prep, salary negotiation, and talking with you about transferable skills. Because by the way, even if you're not looking to make a shift and you're looking to get into something that is your degree, the transferable skills are always going to be important, kind of regardless. Okay. So, what questions do we have for today? I'm happy to answer anything that comes through. And remember, we said at the beginning please go ahead and get out your pen and paper on your phone or computer or whatever. And let's write down one action step that you will take on in this next week. And we would actually love to see your action steps as well. You can feel free to share those in the chat. There's some ideas there. It could be interviewing other people. It could be, oh, I need to update my resume, or it could be something completely different. And while we're waiting for any questions to come through, Amanda, is there anything else that you would like to share resource-wise or anything else while we're seeing if we've got questions from today?
That's great. And I will pop a couple of resources. Thank you for checking in on that, Hallie, into the webinar chat. We did have a ton of pre-submitted questions through the Zoom registration process. So as we wait for live questions to come in, let's go start with a couple of those. You had mentioned cover letter, Hallie, in the last slide. And so let me start with Sam's question, who said, when a job posting says the cover letter is optional, is it really optional, or should I take the time to do it?
Take the time to do it, Sam. Thank you for asking. It's a chance for you to provide more information, get your foot in the door. So if it's optional, I would always plan on including it. If they don't give you the chance to do so or they don't ask for it, do not. Every once in a while, we've had a client say, well, what if I just put it in the same Word doc as my resume, but it's in front? Follow their instructions. It's a good one.
Great, thank you. And then we received this question from a couple of our attendees, including Karen and Brian, who both said, could you touch on ageism or how to avoid over 30 years professional experience and then recently part of a layoff? It's been tough. Is there hope for me to be hired or to pivot career fields in my 50s?
Gosh, I know. Please know. I get it because we hear this a lot from our clients. Yes, it is possible. I know it can feel disheartening. Excuse me. The good news, I would say, is I do think the market is getting better. It's calmed down. People have calmed down after all the layoffs and everything at the beginning. Well, is it perfect? No. Is it ever going to be perfect? Not really. But I do think things are getting better. Our clients are getting interviews. They're getting job offers. I see positive movement, bottom line. With ageism, you want to try to do a couple of things, and you're not alone. This is very normal. You want to try to target roles where they're going to value that. So, not looking to go work, obviously, this is a silly example, but entry level job at a startup, look for roles where that is going to be valued. And they're looking for more experience, connections, wisdom, expertise, all of that. Um, the other things that I would do to help combat the ageism, though, too, is to demonstrate on resume and on LinkedIn, for example, talk about being tech savvy, understanding the use of AI. In some cases with like LinkedIn, it's a good idea to have a little bit more like activity on your activity feed and other things that are going to show that you know and understand technology and you're up to speed with things. So think about the jobs you're applying to and what would their concerns be specifically related to the ageism? Are they worried that you're going to be stuck in your ways? Well, then talk about, being flexible and adaptable. So read through the job description, identify those red flags, and see if you can overcome them in some of the content. I hope that helps as a start.
Great, very helpful. Thank you. And I see Glenda here has a question that she submitted into the chat. I've been using AI to format my resume and customize my cover letters. So the original text and ideas are mine, but just using AI to dial everything in. Is that a good idea?
It is a good idea, and it is fine to do that. Great question, Glenda. Just make sure that when it spits it out to you, that it doesn't sound like too fluffy or computerized. And I know that's a little bit vague. I think we all have a gut instinct about that. So you are totally fine because you're creating it on your end, but getting like, ooh, this is a better word to use here or a better way to phrase that. That's fine to do. Great question.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Catherine asked, how do I address little or long ago job history?
Yes. So with long ago job history, If you've got positions on your resume or on LinkedIn that are older than 10 years old, we still want you to put them on there because otherwise you'll have a gap. But what you can do is either not have any bullet points and just have the job title, the location, and the dates. Or maybe one bullet point. If you need more space on your resume, though, just have a list of like, these are previous jobs. And that's it. Like, so that it fills the gap of what you were doing during that time. And if it's lighter work history or shorter, if I'm understanding that correctly, still put it on your resume, but you won't have as many bullet points. Come up with at least a few so it looks like you did something, but it could be a little bit shorter and that's okay.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Daniela said, how can I translate jargon from the field I'm in to same but different jargon from another field? AKA translate, technical language and other jargon specifically from one industry to another.
Yes, great question. This is where you could use AI to help you wordsmith things just a little bit and see what it comes up with. But what I would be doing is it's kind of like saying, okay, here's what I did. Let me like take the 10,000-foot view of it and say, it's really that I managed data, like genericize it, right, for a second, so that that's the transferable skill, if you will. And sorry, the sun is coming into my office a little bit. Genericize it, but then take that and say, okay, how would that be relevant for this job? I would be managing this or doing this, but it would be with this type of work. So genericize and then go back narrow again. I think that's the best way to do it.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much. Next live question came in from Navtesh. I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly. How do I stand out when changing careers without relevant work experience, but technical skills acquired through education?
Yes. Okay, good. So relevant without relevant work experience, but the certifications or education, put those on there in your experience section and say, like, for example, like certification in ABC, the coursework, the dates that you took that, any projects that you may have worked on, and what those results were. So almost like treat that education as what you did during that time within your experience section. And then just really quickly, Amanda, LinkedIn is still the main platform typically to be looking and applying for jobs. There's a question right above.
Yes.
And I do agree with that. Yes. In some cases, there could be some very industry specific ones. So, for example, for like tech jobs, dice.com, like rolling the dice, is a website. So start with LinkedIn, but it's okay if you come across or try to find industry specific sites too. Sorry to interrupt.
That's great. No, wonderful. It connected perfectly. Thank you for answering that. Another question that just came in from Luke. If there's a spectrum of keywords within a job listing, how do you recognize the more valuable words to highlight?
This is where I would use ChatGPT and AI. And actually, let me put something in the chat box. There's a couple of websites, but I'm putting this in now that will help scan your resume and help you parse through that a little bit more. So some of it, Luke, is going to be the frequency of the keyword. Like if they keep saying something a bunch, that's clearly really important, but you can also use technology to help with this a little bit.
That's great. Thank you so much. And then another question just came in from Paulina. My degree is in one industry which is not in high demand, and I've only worked part-time in this industry. My full-time experience is in a completely different industry, which I can no longer do because it's physically demanding. How do I sell two opposite industries and remain viable as a candidate?
Great question. So, as much as you possibly can, and this is what we help people with too, because sometimes we have to talk it through a little bit to help you, but to say, okay, the position that I did have that may be less relevant, where you, for lack of a better way to say it, you genericize the content a little bit more so that it's more transferable. So, if you were doing something that was really specific, but at the end of the day, it was really like customer relations or relationship management or something like that, then use that language as it would be relevant for the new job. So you still have that position there and you're not lying, but you're saying like, this is basically what I did, and this is what the new job is asking for. So you speak in that new language, so to speak, just thinking about it in a different way. Hopefully that helps.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Hallie, wondering if you might be able to ask or answer a question about resume. We're getting a couple of these, most recently from Rhea, who was curious what parts of the resume matter and which parts might I be able to drop. And do some parts matter more than others? And I need to absolutely make sure to have those parts.
Great question. So the top half of the fold of the first page tends to be the most important in the resume. The sections that we want people to have are the heading, like we showed on the example. So remember to download the slides. You could take a look at that and you could use that as an idea. So the heading, a summary statement is important unless sometimes within like if you're a coder or a really technical field and they don't care about your writing skills and that type of thing, you can skip it. 90% of the time we want a summary. A core competencies or key skills section under the summary. That's where your keywords go. And then you want to have your experience section, your education section. And it's nice to have like anything else, like volunteer work or, certifications or anything like that. But those are the core sections we want you to have. Hopefully that answers.
Yes, very helpful. Thank you so much. And then this is a little bit more of a networking question. So let us know if we can kind of go into this, Hallie. Linda asked, how do I get a foot in the door initially with no experience in a new field that I'm very interested in?
Foot in the door with no experience, field you're interested in. Okay. So, um, use the ideas of transferable skills like we said today. And I would also consider and think about, okay, is there any way where you are now, depending on what you're doing, that you can start to get some relevant experience there, even if it's like doing your job in a different way or volunteering your time or whatever it is. Another thing you could do outside of work is, can you take a class? Can you teach yourself something online? Excuse me, can you volunteer in that new direction or to beef up that skill? So find ways that you can gain experience, even if it's through volunteer work or doing maybe a little bit of freelance or something like that, or where you are now that can help steer you in that direction. For me, for example, when I wanted to become a coach, I had to take a class, like, so I needed to be certified. So that was what made the most sense for my situation, but there's other ways that you can get that experience too.
That's great. Thank you so much, Hallie. And I think Joe's question stems really nicely from that in terms of asking, I see these LinkedIn learning courses or Coursera courses. Is there any value in taking those and listing those on my resume?
I'll tell you this, there is. So since COVID and online and remote learning was, what we had to do for a while, they are more valid and valuable. However, if there is a certification that you could be getting from like, let's say an industry accredited organization, I would go to your industry association page too and see if they have recommendations. In some cases, there may be something that's like one level up and a little bit better. But if you're not like trying to get certified in something and you're just trying to learn something new that's a soft skill or whatever, absolutely, Coursera and LinkedIn are good. And I would go ahead and put those on there for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And then a question from Satya asking, is there any way you could provide some context for leaders, specific areas to focus on when pivoting to a startup? What transferable skills might I want to lean into? And someone else asked about transitioning into startups as well, Hallie.
Yeah. So ready for anything? Uh, and no, I'm just kidding. So flexibility, adaptability, creative thinking, creative problem solving, willing to be very like hands-on. Startups are like, and depending on what they're like, and I'm not bashing them, they're fantastic and really fun to work at. But depending on how old they are and how well funded and all of that, a lot of times it's all hands on deck. So showing that you've got a variety of skills and strengths, and also that you're willing and able to be flexible and multitask. Those are the types of things, being creative, innovative, excuse me, and entrepreneurial. Those are the types of things that I would be putting down because that's what they value.
Great. Thank you so much. And then value, perfect segue into our last question. Chris asked, how important are my personal values within a job search? Sometimes I get caught up in wanting the job to be something really particular as it aligns with my values. How do I consider my values as I think about my job search?
I love that question also because we talk about values with our clients all day long. So your job doesn't necessarily have to honor every single second all of your values every single day. It's good to have some of them be honored though, because you'll like and be rewarded by the job or in the job that much more. But really important point, it can't step on your values. So using me as a very quick example, I have a value of health and wellness and health for the environment. That doesn't mean that's the type of job I'm going to go work in, but some of our clients, for example, who are here in Atlanta, they are very drawn to the organization Racetrack because it has a very good culture. Me personally, I wouldn't feel good about working there because of that personal value. It kind of be like, gas, doesn't make me feel great. So you need to make sure that the culture and what the organization does or provides doesn't smush them. That would be really important too.
Incredibly helpful. Thank you so much, Hallie, and to everyone for joining us for today's presentation. At this time, we invite you to provide feedback on the webinar by answering the following poll question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this webinar to a friend or fellow Leeds alumni? So I'm going to launch that for us right now. As a reminder, all webinar attendees will receive an email on Friday with a link to the recording of this presentation, as well as a survey and a list of resources. To view upcoming webinars as well as previous recordings, please visit our website at colorado.edu/business/alumni. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your time and go Buffs! And thank you again so much, Hallie, for joining us today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Good luck, everyone. Feel free to email me if you have more questions. Maybe you can put that in the follow-up email, Amanda.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you so much. Take care, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.